And welcome back to this episode of the Beyond the Snap podcast. Although today it is Kieran and Kirtan's kickoff countdown, which is great. We're a little close to kickoff in case you haven't noticed. We both played a football game up in Temple last night, so we had to get back and didn't go to sleep. And now it's almost time for kickoff, and we're recording. But first up, Kirtan, we're gonna kind of go pretty fast here. But first up, what is your thoughts about last week's, which is setting the rankings for this week's AP poll?
Okay, so I'm a big believer that the AP poll is used to basically measure a bunch of the teams, and of course, everybody knows it measures the rankings and how good people are performing. But what we need to keep in mind is that the AP poll is made by journalists. They're not coaches, they are not staff members of like any of these teams. They're not watching the football to break it down like we are. They're journalists. So whenever you take that into consideration, they're always going to put teams that they believe are quote unquote better or teams that are more popular at the top rather than the bottom. So just taking a look at this week's AP poll, we have teams like, so we'll break down the top three. We have Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Miami, Georgia. So actually top five. Now, Ohio State, yeah, you can always say they have that great win against Texas. We'll give it to them. Penn State has been not looking their best. Honestly, I would drop Penn State lower. And LSU has been playing good football, but their offense still looks out of shape. Now, the main reason I want to talk about the top five is because I think Miami so far, out of all these top five teams, has the best resume by far. Has a win over Notre Dame, has a win over USF, has just been playing very, very consistent football. In my opinion, they deserve to be either one or two because they're the only ones who have really shown and proven that they can play against these hard teams. Now, Georgia can move up a little bit because they just had a win over Tennessee, and Oregon, just based off the fact that everybody else moved up one, Oregon just moves up one. Then the problem is 7, 8, 9. 7, Florida State, sure, you can make an argument that they belong up here after they beat Alabama. But then we have Texas. And again, if I didn't root for Georgia and if I didn't root for any team really, I would root for Texas because we're from Austin. But in all honesty, and both K-Mac and will say this and I'll say this, Texas looks lethargic. Texas does not look like the Longhorns of last year. They looked shy on offense. Thank God they have a great defense. But Arch Manning does not look like he's performing the way he used to. And that might be because he feels the pressure is now on him now that Quinn Ewers is gone. But they've had a rough 3 weeks. They started off with a loss, opening it against Ohio State. You can make the argument, okay, Ohio State's number one. Then they played, I believe, a like small Texas school where they barely came out on top. And then they
That
played,
was that was this past week.
oh yeah, they played UTEP. And let's just start with UTEP because I don't want to even get into their game, the week 2 game, but let's just start with UTEP. When they played UTEP, Texas and Arch Manning had 10 straight incompletions. UTEP's best player, I believe UTEP's ranking in recruiting is like 132. Texas was number one. Texas has all the weapons, all the facilities. They were at home, and Arch Manning could not deliver. He made bad reads. He threw the ball when he shouldn't have, and it led to them having a very weak and a very bad game, a very not bounce back like everybody expected. So, needless to say, I think Texas should drop. I think Texas, honestly, and I believe everybody should agree, Texas should be around the 16 mark because I think they need to find their own identity. They need to say, hey, put us in the back, move us to the back, let us do our own thing, let us regroup, keep the lights off of us right now. Keep the lights on Ohio State. We'll be back with vengeance. So that's my problem with Texas. Same thing with Illinois. Illinois had a cakewalk of a season. The fact that they're at number 9 is kind of crazy to me. And I think that in our reactions we're going to get to later, I'm calling an upset. A&M, in my opinion, as of right now, is the best Texas team by a good amount, by a good chunk. I think Texas falls to A&M as of right now if they were to play, just based on the fact that Texas hasn't found their stride. And I think that the link up between Culver and Reed is insane. I think Marcel Reed is having a great year. I think Mario Culver is going to have a great year. I mean, he's probably one of the best wide receivers so far, in my opinion. I think he'd be a top 5 wide receiver as of right now. Following that, you have John Mateer, great. Iowa State, all right. Having Ole Miss and Alabama. Ole Miss is fine at 13. I'm okay with that. But Alabama at 14. They've played 2 bounce-back games. They really haven't shown anything. In my opinion, They wouldn't even crack the top 20. I'd have them at like 21. Then you have Tennessee, Utah, Texas Tech. That's fine. And then this is my thing that gets me so irritated. Georgia Tech at 18, Vanderbilt at 20. The AP poll before the beginning of this year had Clemson winning the national championship. Georgia Tech rolled in and said, hey, we weren't invited, but we just came and we crashed your party. We took out Clemson. Why are they 18? Why are they given a crazy, like, you could go be like number 18. Georgia Tech should be a top 15 team. Vanderbilt should be a top 15 team. I find it crazy that they put Georgia Tech at 18. I think that's just disrespectful. And I find it crazy that they put Vanderbilt at 20. I feel like that's disrespectful. After Vanderbilt took care of business against, I believe, the 13th best team at that time, South Carolina. Then you have Michigan, where Bryce Underwood had a great bounce back game, but now they're not starting Sean Moore this game. Sean Moore, as we know, was affected by the sign stealing scandal, and he was punished for a 1 game suspension. So when Michigan plays today, they will not have Sean Moore. So we'll see how well Bryce Underwood can cook when he's on his own. Then you have Auburn, who I think is fair to have him up there, and that's going to be absolutely a great game. We're going to have Jackson Arnold taking on his old team, Oklahoma. And then you got Missouri, Notre Dame, and USC. And by golly, Notre Dame is still ranked. This is the first time since 1988 a team that is 0-2 has been ranked in the top 25. Granted, they lost to Miami, who I just claimed as the number 1 team, and A&M. But I think it's disrespectful to put a team that is 0-2, that is proven that they couldn't even win at home against an A&M team at 24. They shouldn't even be ranked. So in my opinion, that I find is just bewildering that a team can be 0-2 and still make the quote-unquote AP top 25 team. But you know what? It's a long season. Maybe Notre Dame can bounce back. I have a good feeling they will this week, but just to have them at 24 blows my mind. So in my opinion, I feel like they should just switch to the Beaver poll. I think ESPN should adopt ours. I feel like when they play, they should have our Beaver poll on the side instead of the AP poll, because this is kind of mind-blowing. But here, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting poll, and we'll get into the Beaver poll. We didn't have a whole lot of change from last week to this week. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow because we want to focus on the games today. But we didn't have a whole lot of change. I mean, teams that were ranked better beat teams that were ranked worse. So in a lot of ways, there isn't a whole lot of shifting outside of Vandy and Georgia Tech, who we already had as good teams, right? So I think the AP poll is a little bit reactionary in some ways. But moving on to some very brief breakdowns from last week. First of all, Texas A&M. You can say that Texas A&M played a great game, or you can say that Notre Dame can't kick. Either one of those is partially true, but I think the Aggies are really rolling right now, as terrible as that sentence sounds to myself. And I really think they've put together a good team. They've returned a lot of talent. They've built on last year for sure, and I think they're very dangerous. Then Texas, right now, Arch Manning. Honestly, I think this points to something that nobody's talked about yet, and I think this may be more on Sark than it is on Arch. My reasoning for this is as follows. I don't know how Texas practices. Those practices are closed. We can't see them. But it seems to me like at best, Texas is giving Arch most of his reps with a scout team defense. And on one hand, I understand that. You want the defense to get their work and all of that. But you need to incorporate in time, especially in spring and fall camp, to put the ones on the ones. At least in 7-on-7. Maybe not 11-on-11 because you don't want a lot of injuries and a lot of things like that. But at least in 7-on-7, you need the opportunity to send your new quarterback against I think there's a good argument to be made, top 5, top 10 secondary in the country. Because to me, if Arch comes out of what is now 2 seasons, maybe 2 seasons, practicing against that team, right? I don't really see how he could look like this. Because You cannot tell me that when you have the UTEP middle linebacker across from you, that that is more intimidating and more terrifying than having Colin Simmons and LaFau and all of the amazing Texas secondary players across from you in practice. So my best guess is he's not getting them. And that's why he looks like this. That's why he looks like he can't throw the ball. Looks like he is, fundamentally just unsound, unclean. He's making mistakes he shouldn't. And I think part of that is because I think Texas has let him practice against their twos, threes, fours, whatever, because they wanted him to feel good. And now you're getting UTEP is making you look silly. And honestly, that's unacceptable from Texas. And again, I don't know what the practice situation is. This is all speculation. But that's my only hint of rationality that I can grip on to explain this ridiculous showing from Arch. Because look, obviously I expect there to be pressure, I expect there to be mistakes. But they're the kind of mistakes someone who doesn't know the game of football makes, right? Not a player who has been around it his whole life. His uncles are Super Bowl champions. His grandfather was amazing at football. That's not someone who has been around the game that much and knows it that well. Those are not mistakes he makes. So I don't know where Texas has gotten him into this, but he needs to get himself out of it. And Texas, I think, needs to pull him out of it as well. And by that, I mean the coaching staff.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just for the last two teams we wanted to cover, we wanted just to talk about Georgia Tech and Vandy. I know K-Mac has a lot of opinions, and he has a lot of opinions on Georgia Tech and Vandy. So let me just quickly say A&M and Texas, my opinion. So A&M, I feel like they're playing really good football right now. When you're able to go to South Bend and you're able to manage and just hold your business and play lights out and have a good offense, I think Mike Elko is really building something. The culture is there and the winning culture is there. And now I'm kind of scared for the SEC. I feel like that's another team Texas is going to have to roll through. That's not going to be just a pushover. So I was talking about this with a friend, and we were going over Texas, and we said, look, we were listening to the news, and we heard that Sark is saying that on practices, he's not getting the same arch manning that he gets in the game. Like when he plays in practice, he's very competitive. He's very good. He's making all the right reads. It's just in the game, I think it boils over and the pressure gets to him. Now, maybe that is because he's rolling with the practice squad. Maybe that's because maybe not. Maybe he's playing with the first team, but maybe just in his head, he has this expectation that, oh, it's UTEP. I need to score. I need to throw the ball. I need to win. And it can't happen because it's just a mental block. And we all get them from time to time. Now, with Georgia Tech and Vandy, spoke about this a little bit during my AP poll, everything wrong with it. But I feel like if I would say a good analogy is that if we take every single team, we called the AP poll and we called all these good teams varsity football squad that we can use. I feel like Vandy and Georgia Tech were always considered to be the JV. And then as of last year, they look like, oh, they might be JVA, but they're still JV. And then basically what happened this year, to put it in football terms, is that they ran the gauntlet. Clemson and Georgia Tech ran a gauntlet, and Clemson got trucked over by Georgia Tech. And now the coach is saying, well, maybe I do have to respect this kid, but I don't think he's all that. I'm going to keep him on the bench. But he's a varsity player, but he's on the bench. I don't think so anymore. I think Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt, and this is the exact same thing for Vanderbilt, and I think Haynes King for Georgia Tech are truly building a dominant program to the point where when Texas and Vanderbilt line opens and the spread opens, Texas might be only favored by 3.5, if that. And there's going to be a lot of money hammered in if Texas is favored by 6, because Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt are looking good and looking scary. When Georgia Tech plays Georgia, that game is going to be close. A, because it's a rivalry game, and B, because Georgia Tech knows what they're doing. And they're a real football program now. They're not just a bunch of engineers, not just a bunch of nerds anymore. They are here and they're ready to play some football. And the ACC is going to be a scary place. But I think they're just like the unannounced guest. They weren't supposed to be where they are right now. And now that they're rolling and now that they're ranked and now that they have all this momentum, I don't see it stopping. I see them making a push for the ACC. I see the ACC going down now two ways or three ways: Miami, Florida State, Georgia Tech. I see Vanderbilt as the actual threat. Will Vanderbilt play teams that are going to lose or that they're going to beat? Yeah. I believe they play Texas this year. I believe they play other teams good. I believe they play, I want to say Alabama or one of the, what do you call it, teams right in the heart of Florida, like LSU. But all I know is that Vandy is no pushover. Vandy is going to be a dominant team. They're going to play their hearts out, and they're going to. Do you understand? I just said Florida, and then I mentioned LSU. That was bad. Louisiana is what I meant to say. But yeah, just looking at Vandy's schedule, they have a very, very high chance of winning. I mean, they have teams like Bama, like I just mentioned. I think they're going to beat Bama. I think they're going to beat Missouri. I think they're going to beat Auburn. Like, it's going to be a good, good season to watch. And so, watch out for Vandy. Watch out for Georgia Tech. Okay, what else we got on them?
Yeah, I think Kirtan summed it up pretty perfectly, except for the whole LSU and Florida thing. But whatever, not really important. There are going to be thousands of mad Cajuns as a result of this episode, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Nothing.
Okay, moving on to forward-looking, some predictions. Today, in approximately 5 minutes, because we, unlike certain other pregame college shows, like to make it short and sweet so you can enjoy your morning, have a nice breakfast, maybe go for a walk, and then tune in 20 minutes before the game, catch our not overly rushed at all thoughts, and then watch the game. That is brilliance. So, Utah is favored by 3.5. It is at home. They are both 3-0. Texas Tech is looking for its first 3-0 start since 2013. And Utah went 0-4 at home in Big 12 play last season. Now, I don't think that's necessarily indicative of how they're going to play today because they have a lot of new pieces. Devin Dampier, they is transferred in. They have transfer wide receivers. And obviously, it's Utah, so you know the defense is going to be tough as nails. So, for me, I think Utah is looking good. I think they're really going to make an impact on this game, and especially Dampier on the offensive side of the ball. But Texas Tech has one of the best football teams I think that they've ever had in terms of defensive skill. Crazy skill at linebacker, great edge rushing talent. Their back end is solid. I really think they can do some damage defensively to Dampier and Utah, who haven't exactly been playing the cream of the crop. But then on the offensive side of the ball, you have an amazing supporting cast and overall just a great, great team. Obviously, I am going to talk about Cameron Dickey because we've both played him, and he is a very talented athlete, and I think we will see his impact today if Texas Tech is to win the game. So I think it's going to be a big, high-scoring game because both offenses are just so explosive. But ultimately, I think that Utah has been perhaps oversold to us a little bit. I trust Kyle Whittingham, and I really would love to pick him here, but I think I have to go with the Red Raiders by 3. That's what I think is going to happen. I just think their defense has that edge to them, and I trust their offense a little more than I trust that many pieces transferring in, even though they've looked great so far against Cupcakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so moving on, Kirtan, would you give us your prediction for Texas Tech, and then move on to Auburn and Oklahoma?
Okay, let's keep this short and sweet. Because they're about to kick off in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Anyways, Texas Tech, Utah. I feel like Texas Tech is just one of the most. It's just going to be another dominating team, and I feel like, especially, we do have that stat line, and of course, it's not indicative of how this game is going to go. But 0-4 in Big 12 play at home for Utah. And again, they did play a great game, but I do see this being an upset. I feel like Texas Tech is trying to build something here, and spending a lot of money in the transfer portal seems to be the right move as of right now. So give me Cameron Dickey, give me the Texas Tech Red Raiders to pull off the upset. And then real fast on Auburn, Oklahoma, The big storyline that you need to know is that Jackson Arnold is returning to Oklahoma, and he's facing off against John Mateer. Now, in my opinion, these two quarterbacks have been playing insanely well, and I think this is going to be a great, great shootout and a great game for Jackson Arnold as he's going to look to basically um, wreck, wreak havoc on his old team and show him that he doesn't deserve to be benched for Michael Hawkins Jr. and that he actually deserved to be a starter like he is right now. But it's Oklahoma. Oklahoma's at home, and John Mateer's playing some really damn good football. And it just looks like a team that has found their identity and are just waiting for Red River to come around. So give me Oklahoma to win that one. And then lastly, I'll say Illinois, Indiana, just so Cameron can give his opinions on it. Indiana, Illinois, I told you already, Illinois is way too highly ranked. They're number 9. I find that atrocious. They're at Indiana this game. They're going against a team that also made the college football playoffs last year. And I think that the Hoosiers are going to be dominant. I just see this being a win, a major upset. I guess major upset. They're actually favored to win this game. But give me the Hoosiers, and let's say they win it by probably more than a touchdown, in my opinion.
All right. So, briefly, Oklahoma Auburn. I really hope Auburn wins this game because, again, Texas fan, and I need something positive that's not Arch running around the field for 30 seconds and throwing an interception to UTEP. But Oklahoma has looked amazing with John Mateer. Their defense, better than I thought it would be, admittedly. And also, so is John Mateer. I think Oklahoma gets it done. I don't see any way realistically that Auburn is going to win this game. Obviously, if something crazy happens, Auburn's going to win the football game, but I doubt that. So, I think the more interesting game here is Illinois, Indiana. Luke Altmaier has completed 56 of 78 passes for over 700 yards and a solid 8 touchdowns. I think he is very, very good, but I think Fernando Mendoza is a little bit better. He transferred in from Cal. Yes, he was the subject of the Miami targeting debacle last year, if you recognize that name. Yes, I did rant and rave about that, and yes, it was awful. But thank heaven, he's back. He has also completed almost the same completion percentage, a little bit higher, 72.4%, for over 700 yards and 9 touchdowns. He also has 2 more rushing touchdowns. So, honestly, I think this is going to come down to a battle of the quarterbacks. Obviously, the teams have great supporting cast, including Armore Cooper Jr. and Betty for Illinois. But I think ultimately it comes down to the quarterbacks. Honestly, I can see it going both ways, but for me, I got to go with Fernando Mendoza. Got to back one of, in my opinion, the funnest college quarterbacks to watch.
Yeah.
I think that Indiana gets it done.
Yep, absolutely. And I guess that puts us right at 11:02. So the game, I believe, is about to kick off in maybe a minute or so. So if you are tuned into this, which we do have one person in, please go watch the Texas Tech Utah Utes game and tell us if we hit it perfectly spot on. Again, we both have Tech winning this, but it's going to be a battle of the Titans. It'll be a fun matchup for the Big 12, especially to kick it off because the Big 12 is up in the air. You got Baylor, you got all these teams. But yep, go watch that. K-Mac, anything else?
No, thank y'all for enjoying our pregame little breakdown here, and we will be back tomorrow to talk about all the games, Beaver Poll, the full works, the full show, the whole enchilada. All right.
Absolutely.
Go enjoy the game, and we will be back tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right. Peace.